Light the bat signal.
Because tonight we're shining a spotlight on Apple TV Plus's newest original film, The Gorge.
So don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.
And let's get to it. What up, Gotham Guardians and Arkham Adversaries? It's your boy Trey, his Wonder Wife Sarah, and Super Bro Corey, and we coming in hot to discuss Apple TV's most successful film to date with The Gorge. Oh my god, this film caught me by surprise. I don't know about you guys. Do you feel the same way?
I do. I feel like there wasn't a whole lot of advertising for it, but I feel like this film knocked it out of the park for
me. How about you, Super Bro?
You know, this was one of the movies I mentioned back in our what are we most excited for, our most anticipated films of 2025. So I had a feeling this was going to be good, and boy, did it not disappoint.
I agree, man. It was a bit of a banger. We didn't quite know what to expect. You and I were kind of speculating maybe it's a kaiju movie, but instead we got something a little different, and I'm not mad about it at all. If you guys don't know what this movie is about, essentially it's these two highly trained operatives, these sharpshooters who get called to do this basically overwatch of this mysterious gorge that they're not allowed any contact to each other. And as they start to unravel the mysteries and also build a bit of a relationship with each other, they start to figure out why this gorge is so important and why they're being tasked with defending it and what's inside this gorge. And it's creepy. It's a bit of a horror romance, which I wasn't quite ready for.
I wasn't really expecting either. And I love that the storyline goes through so many different, like, I wouldn't say plot twists, but they just keep cracking open more story eggs, which is awesome.
I agree. I think the thing I really loved about the story, especially for the first half of the movie, it's so intimate and a small cast that it's almost like a chamber play drama. It's really just focusing on the character studies, who these people are, and how they kind of bond through their different similarities, but also kind of their healing that they go through with not being able to speak or touch each other, being separated by this gorge. Oh, I don't have paper.
Somebody didn't prepare. No, I actually totally agree with that, Trey. That was wild that, typically I'm always a little concerned about movies that there's not much dialogue in for me specifically. Castaway was kind of felt like it dragged. In my opinion, but this movie didn't drag. There was still that curiosity, and the way the Levi and Joss and Miles and Anya's characters were able to communicate back and forth to the gorge, even though they weren't supposed to, was phenomenal. So the character development and building there was really awesome.
I also really enjoyed kind of this. It was used as a bit of a metaphor, but it also became really a huge inspiration for this story, which was the T.S. Eliot poem, The Hollow Men, which really kind of depicts the agonizing, the despair, the apathy of post-World War I world, and using that as kind of the jumping off point of this story. I think there's a lot you could take from it. I think there's a lot of different ways you could see the different symbolisms of isolation is kind of fascinating. I think that's really what this film succeeds on, because like you said, Corey, while we do get this really nice kind of connection between these two characters, we also get a little bit of this sci-fi horror action that kind of reminds me of a little bit of Call of Duty Zombies, but also Last of Us. It's really wild when it hits that action. And I think that's what helps keep the pacing of the story. While it does have that drama, the romance, the comedy, even well-placed and tasteful comedy, I must say, we also get this mysterious action that really throws our characters in just a creative way that is exciting, in my opinion.
Right. I think this movie is so dynamic in all the different genres that the movie goes through. And I'm finding more that I really like the more intimate casts where you can focus on a few characters and then everything else going on around them. instead of there's so many things that you're focusing on because there's so many people in the scenes. Really, there's two, and then everything going on, which is great because then you can kind of see the bigger picture. And this movie really does want you to see the bigger picture.
I remember when I was first looking at this movie for that original video tray, I pulled up IMDb again because I remember looking at the IMDb for it, and it had like multiple different genres. And I pulled it up again. It says dark romance, monster horror, survival, action, adventure, horror, romance, sci-fi. Like when I first saw that, I was like, "What is this movie?" You know, and it hits
all over the place.
It is all over the place, and it definitely gave me that like kind of a Doom and Resident Evil type monster.
Oh, I can see where you say that. Yeah.
And yet there was still this like military tactical side of it that I really enjoyed, and then the romance and the connection between the two main characters was phenomenal. I was really impressed. Impressed with that aspect as well.
And I think that is something that absolutely elevates this movie. The fact that there is all these different genres that it plays with, but to really hone in on that and succeed with that, you got to have an incredible cast. And the chemistry of Anya Taylor-Joy and Miles Teller, their two characters, oh my God, like it just such a brilliant way of introducing each character. You see the connection that they have between each other, but the fact that they're able to kind of have this playful, flirtatious, and also kind of heal their darkness within them. It's just, I loved it so much, and I just thought it was so brilliant on both sides.
Oh, literally. I agree. I really love that she kind of broke him out of his shell when he was very much like, I'm here to follow orders, and he's
the military boy, she's the assassin.
Right, exactly. And it's a perfect storyline.
And yet there was like this immediate mutual respect amongst them too, because they're talking about like, oh, there's a person that took somebody out at 1, 2, 3 miles away, who do you know anybody who could have made that shot, and they're like playing kind of coy back and forth with that when they knew exactly who made that shot. So that immediate connection and respect for them being both super talented at what they do also made it a lot of fun.
I agree. And I think having even someone like Sigourney Weaver in there that kind of presents this mysteriousness to the situation and the co-opness of it, that and her being one of the sci-fi queens just added to that genre, and having her back, which was great. It was a little bit of nostalgicness there, and I think this film doesn't work without those main two, and their performance, without question, was spectacular and made the movie all the more enjoyable for me. And I just loved it so much. And I think you have to give some credit to the director, Scott Derrickson, who has done movies like Black Phone, which you and I were very surprised by how good that movie was too. And he does it again here with the cinematography. It's beautifully shot. And I think his ability to interpret a lot of the scenes with that sense of isolation, the romance and the playfulness, and how to communicate in their situation was just so brilliantly handled that like everything was done top tier in this movie. And it's noticeable from the get-go.
Right. I mean, he really went all out on this movie. You can't see any flaws, and the way he's directing, it just makes me I need more.
Yeah, smooth storytelling, which is a huge part of the video editing, and like what we were talking about earlier with the pacing of it and the different genres, that it's very tough to throw in 5 different styles and genres in there, and the film is really kind of broken up into pieces. Like you get the drama part in the beginning, the romance, and then you get this thrown into action horror, and then you get the resolution in the third act, and it's just really well handled all the way around.
Yeah, he definitely impressed me quite a bit, Scott Derrickson. I'm not really too familiar with his films. I know he, other than Doctor Strange, and not being the biggest Marvel guy, it was always okay. But the way he did this movie, it all makes the other movies make sense a little bit more. They're the ones that I have seen, because I know he did the Exorcism of Emily Rose, and that's really it. So I definitely want to make sure I check out some more of his films. But I think this kind of crazy multitude of mixture of genres in its own kind of new IP and story is definitely where, you know, he was extremely successful. I love this movie.
I agree. And I think I always got to show some love to the music, because when the music is good, it helps me enjoy the experience all the more. And Trent Reznor did an absolute amazing job with the score of this movie. It definitely created that tension, the mysteriousness, the romance, the playfulness. All of it was just so really well done, and I really enjoyed it. If they wanted to do a sequel or prequel, I would definitely be down. How about you guys? Do you see a clear vision of where this could go next?
You know, I could see a prequel very clearly. The sequel, I mean, this movie was such a good standalone, but it makes you want more because it was such a good movie to begin with. But I could definitely see and envision a prequel. It's the sequel part that leaves me a little bit fuzzy, but I would definitely be interested in.
Yeah, because I don't see where some of these characters can return in the same way, with knowing what they know now about the Gorge.
Right.
But a prequel would be interesting.
I don't know. I think that this definitely could be its own IP and kind of continuation of films. I think a prequel would be super awesome if we got back to where you know, the first team goes in per se, without giving out too much. But I think as far as like sequels and further go, these guys kind of, you know, who Sigourney Weaver was working for gave off like Monarch type vibes, or like not Monarch vibes, but what's the other one called again, Trey? The one that's a little bit more, you know, third party.
Apex. Yeah,
Apex.
Kind of that the corporation.
Yes, the corporation side of things, where I could see it would be interesting if you know, maybe they reprise their roles and, you know, try to take down, you know, some of the corruption. Like they find out more of what, you know, this Apex style group is up to, and kind of go after them.
That's certainly a fascinating idea, and I would love to hear you guys' thoughts in the comments of where you think this should go next, especially with this being widely successful and well received from fans and critics, of just maybe this pushes Apple to do another one in some capacity. If you had to score it, what would you guys give it?
I think I'd go with an 8.7.
That's a solid score.
Yeah.
That's a solid score. Super Bro Corey?
Yeah, I was an 8.8, so
you and I on the same page, my man. I was at an 8 as well. So far is my favorite film of 2025. I think it was absolutely spectacular. If there's one tiny bit of criticism I would give it, is it felt a little anticlimactic after the second act, when, you know, we're kind of thrown into the action. To me, after we get out of it, the craziness and the horror and the action, you're kind of left with the next 30 minutes of like, well, that was the big problem that they got out of. What's really the big deal after this? And it just, to me, it felt like at that moment we were safe, our characters were safe, and there wasn't too much to stand in their way. So to me, that's where I felt, it could have had some more oomph to the end of it, but still a really, really good movie in my opinion.
I like the ending. I feel like I got my closure.
I agree. Yeah, it's definitely, if this was it, I'd be happy. But I think there's an IP here for Apple TV if they wanted to explore it further, and I would definitely show up if they decide to do it.
Oh, absolutely. And I even think that if they wanted to do a prequel, then TV show is, I think, the way to go.
Ooh, that could be exciting. Yeah, either a movie or a TV show. All right. Oh, okay.
For sure. Give us some Monarch vibes, you know, like
right?
This
exactly.
Is,
I love it. I love it so much. Well, guys, can't wait to hear your thoughts in the comments down below. Happy to read them and to respond to some of your theories, because I think this one will have some brains rolling a little bit, which is great. But thank you so much for watching. As always, it helps us out so much when you smash that like, you share this video, subscribe if you haven't already, and hit that notification bell so you never miss an episode. I am your host, Trey, with his Wonder Rhyme Sarah and our boy Super Bro Corey. And don't forget to tune in weekly.
Same bad time,
same bad channel.
We out.